Hi, welcome to the video Spring Boot Unit Testing REST APIs with me, Nam Hà Minh from CodeJava.net. In this video, I'd love to share with you what is unit testing for REST APIs and how to code unit testing for REST APIs with Spring Boot and related technologies. And you will learn how to code unit tests, for example, use the REST APIs, test, add, get, list, update, and delete operations. So throughout this video, I will walk you through the coding process of unit testing some REST APIs on a Java Spring Boot project based on the following technologies: Java Spring Framework, Spring Data JPA and Hybrid Framework, Spring Web MVC, Spring Test, JUnit Testing Framework, Mockito, Mocking Framework for unit testing in Java, Model Mapper, Jakarta Bean Validation, and MySQL JDBC driver. And the software programs I'm using are Java Development Kit JDK, Spring Tool Suite IDE, MySQL Database Server, and MySQL Workbench, and Postman Desktop for testing REST APIs. Firstly, let's understand what is unit testing for REST APIs. Unit testing for REST APIs is the process of coding and running unit tests for REST controllers to ensure that the APIs process requests and produce responses as expected. Here are some examples. If a request contains invalid data, we expect the API should return status for our bad request. Or if a request contains valid data, we expect that the API returns status to our OK. A response has expected status and content type. And we also code unit testing for REST APIs to ensure that the response headers include expected key and value. Or the JSON document in the response body has expected fields and values, and so on. And note that unit testing REST APIs, we test only code of the controller layer. We don't test the code of the depending layers, such as service or repository, as these layers should be tested separately. Next, let's understand how to do unit testing REST APIs with Spring Boot and related technologies. Suppose that we have a Java Spring Boot project that implements some REST APIs for user management like this. In the repository layer, we have the user entity class, the user repository interface. In the service layer, we have the user service class that implements business methods for user management. And in the controller layer, we have the user API controller class, which implements the REST APIs for user management. And now for unit testing, the REST APIs, or in other words, unit testing the REST controller, we need to code a new test class named user API controller test, and we need to use the web MVC test annotation to load the test class, and use the mockbin annotation provided by Mockito framework in order to create mock object of type user service, which is used by the user API controller. Let me explain to you. So in the unit test class for testing REST APIs with Spring Boot, we need to use the web MVC test annotation to disable full auto configuration of a Spring Boot application, to apply only configurations for MVC tests, such as loading the REST controllers. That means the service component or repository components won't be loaded. And in unit testing REST APIs, we use object mapper from faster XML section library in order to serialize a Java object, entity class or DTO, to a JSON document, and to deserialize a JSON document to a Java object. And also in unit testing REST APIs, we need to use Mockito APIs to create mock objects of service components that are used by the REST controllers, and mock objects in arguments and return statement of service methods, and verify if a service method gets called, and more. And also in unit testing REST APIs, we use a mock MVC object to perform requests or API calls and assert the response, such as checking the status code, content type, JSON document, and more. Let me show you an existing Java Spring Boot project that implements some REST APIs for user management. As you can see here, this is a Maven project file. I'm using Spring Boot version 3.0.4, and for the dependencies, I'm using Spring Data JPA, Spring Web, Spring Boot Starter validation for Jakarta, Bean validation APIs, Model Mapper, Spring Boot DevTools, MySQL Connector J, because this application uses MySQL database. And this is the user entity class in the repository layer. You see it has the fields ID, email, first name, last name, and password. And this is a user DTO class that has the fields ID, email, first name, and last name. And this is a user service class that implements the business methods for user management, such as add, update, get, list, and delete. And this is a main class for Spring Boot application, in which I declare a bin of type model mapper. Okay, and this is a user repository interface that extends CRUD repository in order to use Spring Data JPA with Hibernate. This is a exception, user not found exception. This is the API, the REST controller class. You see the base URI is /users, and here we use user service object model mapper and the handler methods for implementing the REST APIs for user management here: add, get, list, update, and delete. And note that all the handler methods now throw unsupported operation exception, meaning that they have not been implemented. Later, I will show you how to complete the code of the API controller when we code the unit test for REST APIs. Okay, and then this is application configuration file that defines the data source, URL, username, password, and some attributes for using Hibernate and JPA. You see, I used a local MySQL database users DB1. So let me create a new database schema here. Users DB1. Okay. We have the new database schema users DB1 here, set as default schema, and let me run the application to let Hibernate generate the tables based on the user entity class. Here you can see the JPA annotations are used here: entity, table, ID, column. Okay, now let me start the user's API application to let Hibernate generate the corresponding table users in the database. Okay, now you see it executed the SQL create table statement to create the users table. Okay, let me check here. You see a new table users got created in here, and you can see the columns, the structure of the table here. Column ID, email, first name, last name, and password. And of course, the table is empty now, no rows. Okay, so you see an existing Java Spring Boot application. Now let me stop it. So the sample user REST APIs which we will develop and code unit test for post/users. This API adds a new user to the system, and the second API get/users/id gets details of a specific user by ID, and the third API/users that returns a list of all users in the system, and the next API put/users/id that updates details of a user specified by an ID, and the last API delete/users/id that removes a user from the system. Now let's create a new test class for unit testing REST APIs. So I create a new test class here. User API controller test. Okay, the name of the test class should be the name of the corresponding controller class here, user API controller, and with test here, and we need to use the web MVC test annotation and specify the controller class which will be loaded by this test is user API controller dot class, and in this test we need to use object of type mock MVC to perform request. So we use AutoWire mock MVC, and we also need to use an object of type object mapper in order to read and write Java object to JSON and vice versa. AutoWire object mapper from the faster XML JSON library object mapper, and we declare a final string field for the base the endpoint path of the user APIs. Static final string endpoint path is /users. As you can see in the controller class, the base URI of the user APIs is /users. Okay, and we also need to declare a mock bin of type user service because as you see in the REST controller here, it uses an object of type user service. So that's why we need to use Mockito's mock bin annotation to let it create a mock object of type user service. Now let's code unit test for the add user API. The add user API requires the request method is post and the URI is /users. And the first case for unit testing this API is that we expect the status for OO indicating bad request if the request body contains invalid data. Okay, let me show you how. So in the controller, we have the handler method for the add user API here. Currently, it is not implemented. let me return now for now. Okay, and we write the first test method test add should return for but request. And firstly, we create a new user object, new user equal new user, and we set empty values for email. So that means the data in the request body is invalid. First name is empty, last name is empty. As you can see in the user entity class, we have the validation constraints not blank for email field, and we also specify the length annotation for the first name field. Min is 3, max is 50, max is 20. We also specify the same validation constraint for the field last name, and password max is 10, min is 6. Okay, and then we need to use the object mapper here to write this Java object to a JSON string, like this object mapper. Write value as string here, new user, and it returns the string request body. This string represents the JSON document of this new user object. Okay, and then we use the mock MVC object here to perform a request. Mock MVC perform, and because the API add user requires post HTTP post, as you can see here, so we need to use the post method here, and the URI is the endpoint path, and we need to specify the content type of the request. Content type is application / JSON. Okay, and then we need to specify the content of the request, which is the JSON string here. Okay, and then content is the request body at throws declaration, and we expect and expect we do assertion on the response here. We expect that the status of the response, so we use the static method status is bad request. So we expect that the status of the response is bad request of 400. You can see it imports the post and status methods from the class mockMVC request builders and mockMVC result matches. Okay, now let me run this first test method. Just right click, run as JUnit test. Okay, you see we got the test failed. You can see here expected 400 but was 200. So that means the code in the API is not correct. We expect that with the empty values for the fields email, first name and last name, the API should return status for our bad request, but it did not. So we need to update the code in the controller. Let me close some classes here. Okay. Okay, the controller here. Now we need to implement update the handler method that implements the add user API. So we need to use the valid annotation for the parameter of type user here, besides the request body annotation. So Jakarta bin validation will work to validate the fields of the user entity class, as we use some constraints here, not applying for email, length for first name, last name, and password. Okay, now we can run the test again. Okay, you see the test has passed with a green bar here, and you see we can update the code to see the details of the request and response here, and do print. Use the static method print to print the details of the request and response in the console, so we can get more information about what is going on. Okay, now you see the request details method post URI slash users and content type application JSON, and the body of the request is the JSON document here that represents details of a user. You see email is empty, first name is empty, last name is empty, and the details of the response here, status for invalid request content. Okay, so it works as expected for the first test case. Next, let's code the second unit test for the add user API. In this case, we expect that the status should be true or one created if the request body contains valid data, and we also expect that the response has content type application slash JSON, and it also contains a header with the name is location and value is slash user slash ID of the newly created user. And we also expect that the JSON in the response body has the field email with value is the user's email, and it does not contain the field password. Okay, come back to our project, and let's code the second unit test for the add user API. We can copy the first unit test and modify the code. Change method name to test add should return 201 created for the add user API for successful create operation. And now for this test, we should specify valid values for all the fields of the user object here. Specify email john.doe@gmail.com, first name John, last name Doe, and we also set password passwords John123. Okay, we used this object mapper to convert this Java object to JSON string, and because we expect the API should return status to one created, that means the create user API is successful. So we need to update the code here. We call service.add user, and it returns the newly created user object persisted user, and we return response entity created for the status created. We can specify the status. Okay, created we can return a new response entity like this, with body is the user object and status code http status created. Okay, and test. No, we need to use Mockito because you see in this handler method we call the add method of the user service class. So in the test here, we need to use Mockito. Let me run this test to see what will happen without using Mockito. Of course, we get the test failed. You see, sorry, expected 400 but was 201. We should change the assertion here. Expect the status is created. And we also expect the content type is application JSON here. Okay. Now let me run this test again, and you see it is successful. Now let me see the request body and the response 201 created. Okay, so far so good. Now we expect that the response contains the header with the name is location and value is /user / the ID of the newly posited user. Okay, so we update the code like this and we expect the header of the response, so we can use the method header name and expected value here. Header name is location, and we can use the is method, and value is /user /1. Sorry, this should be an expect. We use the method header and string. Add static method header from the mock MVC result matches. Okay, and run the test again. And you see the test failed because no header with the name location in the response. Yeah, that means we need to update the API. Yeah, we need to return the header location here, so we can create a new URI object. URI equal URI create /users and /ID of the newly posited user, get ID, and then we change the return statement here to return response entity created with a given URI, and body is a given user object. Okay, and run the test again. You see the test still failed. You see, we got the error. Now pointer exception cannot invoke getID method on a now user object. That's because we don't use Mockito. So now we need to update the test method to use Mockito to fake the method parameter user here and the return object in the add method of the service class here. So we need to use Mockito like this. Mockito dot when the add method of the service class gets invoked with the given user object new user here, then return the new user object, and we also set ID for the new user object is, for example, ID1. Okay, and run the test again. Now you see the test has passed successfully, and in the console you can see the header in the response here, header location with value slash user slash one, you see, and body is a JSON document that represents the newly created user. Okay, so far so good. And next we want to expect that the response or the body has a field email which value is the user's email, and it does not contain the field password. But as you can see here, it contains the field password here. Okay, now update the code here and expect. And for checking verifying value of field in the JSON document, we can use the JSON path method and specify expression, JSON path expression. You can learn more about JSON path expression. Let me show you the website later. Okay, now you can specify the expression is like this $sign and dot email. That means we get the value of the field email in the JSON, and we expect that it is equal to a specified value, which is this one. So I declare it as a new variable. Okay, email, expect is email. Okay, and run. Okay, you see the test is successful because in the body of the response it has the field email with the expected value. If you change the value something like this, it will fail. You see the test failed. Expected is 2 dots but was email rest. Okay, that's how to expect value of a field in the JSON document in the response body. And I recommend you to check the JSON path website on GitHub to learn more about using JSON path with XPath like expressions to verify the JSON document. You can see operator as a root element to query, and you can see some functions, operator, and various examples here, you see. So I recommend you to check this page to learn more about using JSON path expressions. Okay, and lastly, in this test case, we expect that the JSON document does not contain the field password. So we write the code like this and expect JSON path. We use the expression $sign.email, and we use the method that takes only expression and does not exist Okay, sorry, the field name should be password. Okay, run the test, and of course it will fail. You see the test failed. You can see expected no value at JSON path password, but found John 123. So that means the API is not correctly implemented. So we need to update the code. Instead of returning the posited user object directory, we should return a DTO. So in this class, I already have model mapper entity to DTO here. So I just call body entity do DTO posited user because the user DTO class does not have the field password. Okay, and run the test again, and this time it should pass. Okay, you see the test has passed for all the test the expectations we set here. Content type status had a value of email field does not have the password field. Next, let's write unit test and complete the get user API with the request is get and slash user slash ID. And the first case, we expect that the API should return status for not found if no user found with the given ID. Okay, so let's update the second API that returns details of a user found by the given ID. For now, I just return null for the handler method. Okay, and we code the next unit test method here. Test get should return for not found. So we declare user ID equal 123 and the request URI. Request URI is endpoint path slash and user ID. Okay, and we used mock MVC to perform a GET request to the server. So we can copy this code block. Instead of using post here, we use GET method to fire HTTP GET request. And we don't send data in the request body because it's a retrieval operation. We expect the status should be not found. Not found. Throws declaration. Okay, very simple and run. Sorry, request URI here. You see the test failed. Expected 4 but was 200. Okay, for this test, we need to update the code here. Update the code in the handler method here. We call service get ID returns user object, and we need to check catch here. Surround with check catch. In case of user not found exception, we return the status not found. Return response entity not found not built. And in case successful retrieval operation, we return the user object file here. So we write the code return response entity. Okay, body is entity to DTO user. Okay, and run the test again. You see, the test still failed. It's because we have not used Mockito to fetch the method called get of the service user service object here. So we need to use Mockito here. Mockito when the get method of the user service class gets invoked with a given user ID, then we throw an exception of type user not found exception. Okay, so we can see that's the purpose of using Mockito, because when we use the web MVC test annotation here, it does not load the service layer. It loads only the controller layer. Okay, now run the test again. Okay, success. You can see is a request URI and the response file for not found. And next, let's code the second unit test for the get user API. In the second case, we expect that the status should be true or OK if a user file with a given ID and the response has content type application / JSON, and the JSON in the response body has the field email with a specific value, and it does not contain the field password. So it is similar to this test. Test as should return to one created. So we can copy and modify. Copy, change the test method name to test get should return 200. Okay. We create a new user object here, which will be returned by the service the get method of the user service class. So here we use Mockito service.add. We copy the declaration of request URI here. Okay, so when the get method of the user service class gets invoked with the user ID here, then we return the user object user. Okay, we use object mapper to write this Java object to JSON, and we perform a get request with a given request URI. Okay, expect content type is application. Sorry, my mistake. This statement set the content type of the request, not the expectation of the content type of the response. So let me update the code here. Okay, let me show you. And expect content result matcher. Content type is application / listen. So this is a statement for the expectation of the content type of the response. I'm very sorry. Okay, so we expect the content type here, and the status is okay. Okay, we also validate the email field here and the password field here in the JSON document in the response body. All right, now run this test. You see, the test is successful, meaning that the API is implemented properly. You can see the details of the. We don't need to set the content of the request. Now run again. We also don't need to set content type of the request. Delete the code that says the request body. Okay, so this should be the correct code of the test get should return to our okay. Okay, successful. You can see now. Now you can see the request, simply a GET request, and the response content type application JSON, and body is a JSON document that represents user information. Okay, perfect. Next, we are going to complete the list users API with the request URI like this get/users. And for unit testing, the first case we expect status 204 no content if no users available. Okay, so come back to our project and in the handler method list, yeah. For now, I just return nah. Okay, and write the first test case for the list users API. Okay, we can copy this test method, paste here. Test list should return 204 no content. 204 no content. We just send a GET request for the endpoint path / users here. And we do not set content type of the request. We expect the status is no content. Okay, and run the test. You see, the test failed. Expected 204 but was 200. Now we need to complete the code here. We call service load list that returns the list of users, and then we check if users is empty. Then we return the status 204 no content. Return response entity no content dot build. Else we return response entity. Okay, body is a list of users. Yeah, in this class I already have the list to detail method here, so I can reuse list to detail, passing the list users. This should be response entity. Okay, so this is the implementation of the list users API. Quite simple. Run the test again. Okay, the test is successful now. You can see the GET request and status in the response 204 no content. As you can see, in this case, we don't need to use a Mockito. Or if you want to use Mockito, you can write the code like this: Mockito when the list method of the user service class gets invoked, then return new empty array list. New empty array list of type user. Okay, and run the test again, and of course it will be successful. Okay, you see. And for verifying method code using Mockito, you can use the code like this: Mockito verify. The method code is the service object here, and the number of times the method gets called here in the times method. We expect that as a list method of the user service class gets invoked only one time, so we can write the code like this. But you must call Mockito verify after firing the GET request, and run the test again. Okay, successful. You see, if you change the number of times here to 0, the test will fail. You see. So I change back to one time. And next, let's code the second unit test for the list users API. In this second case, we expect that the status should be 200, 200, okay, if there are users available in the system. And we also expect that the response has the content type application/JSON. And in the JSON document in the response body, we expect that the email of the first user has a specific value. And we also expect that the first name and last name of the second user have specific values. Okay, let me show you the coding. So we copy the test, this test, paste and modify. Test list should return 200. Okay. Now instead of returning an empty array list here, we should create a array list that contains two user objects. Here we expect the status is okay. Okay, now we create two user objects. The first one here. The first one, user one. We set the values for the field. And the second one. And for the second user, we declare the fields first name and last name. First name is Nam. Last name is and we create the second user object. User 2. Email is nam@gmail.com. Pass the value for last name and first name. First name and password. Nam hm 1 2 3. Okay, and we create a new list list from java.ut package list users equal a list of user 1, user 2, and then we use Mockito. Yeah, this statement. When the list method of the user service class gets invoked, we return the list users that contains two users. Okay, and then we expect the content type of the response is application JSON. Okay, let me run the test right now. Okay, successful. And you can see the request here, the response here. Body is an array that contains two users. We also need to set ID for each user. Set ID here, ID 1. And this user has ID 2. Okay, now write the code to expect the value of the email of the first user. So you can write the code like this. You can use the session path expression $sign and the index of the element in array. So this means the email of the first user should be equal to this given value. And similarly, we can expect the field first name of the second user, which is at the index 1. First name is first name, and last name is equal to the specified value last name. You see, we expect the value of the email field of the first user, and we expect the values of the fields first name and last name of the second user in the response body. Now run the test again. Okay, you see the test has passed successfully. Next, we are going to complete the update user API, which the request is put and the URI is /users/id, and write some unit tests for this API. In the first case, we expect the status is for not found if no user found with the given ID. Okay, come back to the project, and in the REST API controller, the update handler method that implements the update user API here. For now, I just return null. Okay, and write the first test case for the update user API. We can copy some existing code here. We change the test method to test update should return. For not found, we specify user ID is 123, request URI, and also let's comment this statement right now. We do not set content. Oh, we should set content type and request body as, because in the request we should send details of user. So I copy the declaration of the user. Let me check. Sorry, for this test, we don't need to set content type of the request. Okay, I copy this user and use object mapper to convert Java object to JSON string. Here, this should be user. Okay, and because the API requires the HTTP method is put for update operation, so we should use the put static method here. Content type is application JSON, and we specify the content of the request is request body. We expect the status is not found. Okay, now let me run the test. Test update should return false for not found. Of course, the test failed. You see, expected false but was 200. You see, the request body is a JSON document here. Okay, let me implement the code for the API. Here, we call service update for the user object, and it returns the updated user object, so which I catch. And in case user not found exception, we return the status for not found. Here. And if the update operation successful, here we return the status okay with body of the response is user object JSON document. Okay, so the code is very simple like this. Okay, and run the test again. You see, request failed. Source cannot be null. Now we need to set ID of the user here. Because when we used object mapper here to serialize Java object here to a string here, and then the string request body is passed in the content of the request here, and then on the server side it does the deserialization, convert JSON back to user object here. So we need to specify ID of the user here. User ID, and also here we also need to set user ID, set ID value is ID in the path variable ID here. Okay, and run the test again. We still got the test failed. Now it's time to use Mockito when the method update of the user service class gets invoked on the given user object here. Then we throw user not found exception. Okay, now see the test is successful. You can see the status for in the response here. And next, let's code the second test case for the update user API. We expect that the API should return status for our batch request if the request body contains invalid data, similar to the add user operation. So copy, paste, and modify the code. Test update should return to 400 batch request, and in the request body we specify some empty values for the user fields: empty email, empty first name, and empty last name. Okay, in this case we don't need to use Mockito. Okay, and we expect the status is bad request. Okay, and run the test. The test failed. Let me check. We need to use the valid annotation for the parameter user in the handler method here. So Jakarta bin validation will work. Okay, and run the test again. Okay, successful. You can see this status code in the response for our invalid request content. You see in the body of the request empty values for the fields email, first name, last name. And let's code the third test case for the update user API, in which we expect the status is to our OK if the request body contains valid user information. And we also expect that the response has content type application JSON, and the JSON document in the response body has the field email with a specific value. And also we verify that it does not contain the field password, similar to the add user API. Okay, so we add a new test method. Copy, paste, and modify. Change the method name to test update should return 200. Okay. We set valid value for the user object here. Okay, and we expect the content type of the response and the value of the field email, so we can copy here. Copy. Okay. We expect the content type is application JSON, status is okay, and we expect the value of the email field and in the JSON in the response body, and we expect the password field does not exist. Okay, and now run the test. For this, we need to use Mockito. When the update method of the user service class has invoked with the argument is the user object here, then return the user object. Okay, and run the test. Okay, the test is successful. You can see the details of requests and response here. And next, let's complete the delete user API, which is identified by the delete request with URI slash user slash ID. And in the first case, we expect the status for not found should be returned if no user found with the given ID. Okay, so the handler method for the delete user API here, it takes a path variable for the user ID as a method parameter. For now, I just return null and code a new unit test method. We expect for not found, so we can copy this code, paste and modify. Change the method name to test delete should return for not found. User ID request URI. We don't need to specify user object. We don't need to set content type here. Request URI. Okay, and for this test, we need to use the static delete method to fire http delete request. Okay, status is not found, and just don't need to use Mockito right now. Okay, and run the test. It failed, you see. Expected for but was 200. Now let me implement the code here. We call service delete ID and surround the statement with catch block. Okay, in case of user not found exception, we return the status not found. And in case user found with the given ID and was removed from the system, we return the status code no content, not view. Okay, and run the test again. We need to use Mockito. Like this. Mockito when the delete method of the user service class gets invoked with the given user ID, then throw an exception. Now let me check delete user ID. Sorry for this kind of void method. We should use another statement like this. Do throw user not found exception when service delete user ID get invoked. Okay, so for void method, we should use like this. Okay, you see now the test is successful. Status for not found. Request delete. And lastly, let's code the last unit test for the delete user API, in which we expect the status for no content should be returned if a user found and was removed from the system. Okay, so we just copy paste and modify the code. Test delete should return 204 no content for successful delete operation. no content. Expect status is no content. Okay, and for this kind of test, we need to use Mockito like this because the delete method returns nothing, void. So we need to use do nothing method when service delete as code for the given user ID and run the test. Okay, if the test is successful, you see status 204, no content. Alright, so that you have learned how to code unit testing for REST APIs with Spring Boot and related technologies. I recommend you to learn more about WebMVC test at the official Spring documentation at this URL, and learn more about Mockito, the mocking framework for unit testing, at its homepage, and learn more about JSON path at this GitHub URL. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share this video. Thanks for watching.